Yesterday I spoke about how the world puts no difference between the clean and the unclean. Most of you call or think that our Creator's commandments are wrong, and many of you call or think that they are a curse even. You got your crazy beliefs from the abomination that desolated the truth, Saul of Tarsus. You chose to believe him instead of believing our Elohim's prophets and his son. But the world's abominations run much deeper than just calling our Elohim statutes and his judgments a curse, like Christianity does. Most of you go so far as to condemn his righteousness in your hearts even. Most of you think that his commands for us to do things like purge out evil from our midst is evil to do so. Concerning the last days, Isaiah spoke in Isaiah 5, verse 16, Yahweh of hosts will be exalted in judgment. Elohim, who is holy, will sanctify righteousness. Most of you could care less about his righteousness because you have your own brand of righteousness that you carry around like a chip on your shoulder. He says here that you will be judged and his righteousness will stand. What judgment do you think that Isaiah is talking about in this verse that will exalt our Elohim? I will tell you, it is the same judgment that our Messiah said that all will be judged by in the last days. Yeshua said in John 12:48, He that sets me aside and does not seize my sayings has one that judges him. The word that I have spoken, the same will judge him in the last day. His name is the word of Elohim. It is his Father's word. He said that he was sent to bear witness to his Father's word. He is saying that if we set his Father's word aside, we will be judged by it. And only his righteousness that his word teaches will prevail when the dust settles. The writings of all of the prophets testify that this is what Yeshua said in this verse, and he testified to their writings. Just the fact that he fulfilled so many of their prophecies testifies that their writings are true. Our Creator tells us to purge out evil. He means for us to purge out evil when he tells us so. To do so is a commandment. To say that to do so is evil of the worst kind. Saying this or thinking this in your hearts is calling his word evil. Isaiah went on a couple verses later to say in verse 18, Woe to those who draw iniquity and sin with a false measuring line like a rope pulling a wagon. He is saying, woe to those of you who pull iniquity and sin into your midst by measuring it with a false and vain measuring rod. If your measuring line is false, you're pulling evil into your house with it. Our Elohim's word must be our measuring rod and not perversions of it. We have to obey it for what it says and let it measure all things. He must define right from wrong, and he does so through his word. It is the original sin of the garden to decide right from wrong on our own. Woe to those of you who have your own brand of righteousness that trumps our Elohim's righteousness. Who do you think you are anyway? And a group of people telling me just yesterday that I am the one who is wrong because I get angry at evil when it prevails and continues in my midst. Where is this found in the measuring rod? It is not. They measured me with their own measuring rod and their own righteousness and not with our Creator's word. It was amazing to listen to my accusers speak against my Father's instructions the way that they did, yet these same accusers still claim that they were bearing his name. The problem for them is they forsook his word to uphold their brand of righteousness that became their measuring line. This is exactly what Korah and his followers did when they went up against Moses and Aaron. They said to them, Who appointed you in charge? After all, we have our Elohim spirit as well. The problem for them was they were rising up against Moses and Aaron, and they were our Elohim's anointed. They disagreed with Moses even though our Creator spoke to him firsthand. Scripture says face to face. They were not just disagreeing with Moses and Aaron, they were disagreeing with our Elohim in doing so. I do not know what the subject matter was that day with Korah, and it's not important anyway. What is important is that we cannot be in disagreement with what our Creator says. We cannot live the sin of Adam and Eve and decide right from wrong for ourselves, because when we do, we are cut off from our Elohim. Isaiah went on to add, verse 20, Woe to them that call evil good and good evil, that put darkness for light and light for darkness, that put bitter for sweet and sweet for bitter. Woe to those who are wise in their own eyes and prudent in their own sight. It is amazing to witness people defending their righteousness. I will use parenting as an example today. We are commanded to rise up our children to obey our Creator's statutes and judgments. We are commanded to teach them to hate evil and to love good. I have had people tell me how to parent and tell me that they are the trained parents, and that they know how to raise up children, even though they themselves have grown children who continue to lie and willfully transgress against our Elohim. I'm not sure why they claim makes them the experts. They cannot even see their hypocrisy because they are prudent in their own understanding and wise in what they believe to be true. Their expertise is not based on the measuring rod, based on their own form of righteousness and what they think is right and what they think is good before his eyes. If any of you are excusing evil or making allowances for it, you are pulling it into your midst with a false measuring line. And if you are making allowances for evil and calling the one who opposes the evil with all of their being the evil one, shame on you. Why do you think that our Elohim is sending his wrath to the world if we are to excuse evil and let it continue in our midst? He has held his wrath back since the flood until now, while he called out those who would hate evil and those who would purge it out from their midst, desire to purge it out from their midst. And now that his first fruits are sealed, he is sending his wrath upon those who will not want to turn to hearkening to him. He commanded us to purge out evil, but we did not as a society, and now he is going to take care of this for us. He has been building his family from those who eschew evil, even though it has prevailed in the world, and now he is going to continue to build his family with evil being purged out. Most people do not see things like breaking the Sabbath as being that evil, or even evil at all. This is because they do not see that not obeying our Creator as being evil. They have no regard for why we were put here. Therefore, they have no regard for what obeying him leads to. They have no regard for our Elohim's perfect righteous character, and they actually scoff at it in their hearts. They don't realize that obeying him leads to his righteous character because they never feared enough to learn this. Using the Sabbath as an example, our Creator sentenced a man to be stoned for rebelling against his instructions for this day. Do you really think that obeying his Sabbath is not an important instruction to him? But instead of calling this Sabbath breaker evil, most of you call our Elohim's punishment for the Sabbath breaker evil. In doing so, you are calling him evil. It's his word that you're calling evil. I can go right down the line with the rest of his instructions and show you how the world turns their backs to his righteousness. Most of you even tolerate and justify obvious evils like lying to one another. From time to time, I have people bring up to me, what about David? After all, he did some bad things they want to point out. Yes, David made mistakes, but his heart was broken because of his transgressions. He meditated on his Elohim's word day and night and hungered to be found in his favor by living his instructions and ordinances. He desired them. His heart was repentant. This is the heart that our Elohim can mold and can fashion. This is the heart to those whom he looks upon. This is different than a heart that says, what's the big deal? So I lied, so what? So I broke the Sabbath, so what? David knew the hurt that his mistakes caused, and he was totally broken and contrite because of them. He did not waltz off along his merry way. He said, Father, break my legs or my arm if need be, but please do not remove your spirit from me. He sought his Creator's righteousness. He pleaded with his children to do the same thing. He did not have Korah's spirit of rebellion. He even refused to rise up against Saul because earlier Saul had been anointed by our Elohim. He refused to rise up against him even though he himself had since been anointed to replace him. He felt that since Yahweh had anointed him, then he was going to have Yahweh was going to remove him. He was going to say, Yahweh, he said, Yahweh, you are going to have to remove him. You're the one who anointed him, you remove him. You would not believe what I have been witnessing from a different spirit in people who say that they are led by my Father, our Elohim spirit. and tell me that I am the one that is wrong. I have witnessed all sorts of different measures of rebellion to me from people, in spite of being anointed by His Word. Even from people who acknowledge that I have been anointed by Him through His Word. Even people who had His Spirit guiding them until something come along that just tweaked them. And then they rose up against Him and they were shut off from His Spirit. There is no fear amongst most of you. Once your pride establishes something in your mind, it is amazing how strong-willed you can be to uphold your wisdom, even though His measuring rod says differently. It was brought to my attention a little bit ago that the same thing could apply to me, and absolutely, it certainly could and can, and that's why I measure everything against the measuring rod. For those of you who have risen up against me and have risen up against the measuring rod, you certainly do not have the heart of David. We have to let His Word be the measuring rod. Not one of you who have accused me of being false have been able to come to me and tell me where I am wrong according to the measuring rod that was given to us. This is because I have measured what I've spoken with the measuring rod, and you cannot bring this charge against me. Maybe pick an isolated verse here or there by itself and try to build a case, but all you have to do, precept upon precept, His Word is clear on what His righteousness is, His righteous judgments. Instead, most of you just tell me that I'm wrong because you do not agree with what I have spoken or how I've spoken it. Most of you think that calling evil is not being loving. Is it love that the Sabbath breaker continues to live so that he or she can teach their children or teach others to rebel against our Creator? Rebellion to Him leads to eternal death. How is it love for this? How is it love to let this person shed the blood of others like this by his bad example? Is it love to let someone in your family continue to cause rift and division and hurt to others because they continue to lie or they continue to steal from others in the family emotionally? No, man has a backwards way of looking at what love is. It is not love to let evil continue. It is wicked to let evil continue. Most have a backwards way of looking at everything that is good versus evil because they have been programmed by their father the devil. Most have rejected our Creator's programming that would have taught them His righteousness. Because of this, most call good evil and they call evil good. But the good news is those who continue to do so will soon be purged out, and our Elohim's will finally be done here on earth as it is in heaven. We are just 165 days away from this happening and counting. The question for each of you is, how much affliction will it take to get you to stop calling good evil? How much affliction will you need to be heaped upon you to get you to stop calling evil good? Or will you need to die in your sins because you are too full of pride to admit that you have worshipped our Creator in vain hypocrisy? These are the questions that you should be asking yourself because His wrath is on its way to humble you.